Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If any of you want to be my follower, you must give up your own way. Take up your cross and follow me. If you try hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it."
Momento Mori, which is Latin for remember you will die, is the ancient practice of reflection on our mortality. Now, it's not a morbid fascination with death. It's not a call to submission to the inevitability of death. Rather, it's a call to life. It's a daily invitation to life. It's the rallying cry from the poem by Dylan Thomas, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage with the dying of the light." Momento Mori, remembering you will die, embodies the prayer of the psalmist. Teach us, Lord, to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Momento Mori, remember you will die, remember your days are numbered, so that your hearts would be wise and you will use your days well, to live fully, to live abundantly, to live wisely, to use your limited time well. The ancient practice of remembering, Momento Mori, far from depressing us, is designed to focus us on the things that matter most. Momento Mori is a call to the reality not only of our inevitable physical death, but to the potential that lies in choosing to surrender our souls and our spirits to the ultimate truth, that to die is to gain, to die to self is to live, that to fully live is to fully surrender, that to be first we must become last. Momento Mori reveals to us that the way up is in fact down. 3 times Jesus tells his disciples, his friends, that he's going to die. Momento Mori. It's like he's remembering that this reality is coming. He unfolds with increasing clarity and with increasing detail what will happen to him and ultimately to them if they will follow him. What does he want them to understand? That's what we're trying to find out. Over the next 3 weeks, as we approach Easter, we listen in on the times Jesus speaks to his friends about his own death, and we learn with them. So let me take you to the source of the Jordan River, to Caesarea Philippi. This place is memorable for me for 2 reasons. Michelle, on a visit years ago to Israel, tripped and she fell face first onto the rocks there at the Jordan River, and my family's nervous response is to laugh usually, and then to look around to see who saw, and then we helped her up. But we've laughed about that for many years. But far more importantly, it's here that Jesus asked his friends, "Who do people say I am? Who do people see me as?" And Jesus asked this question here of all places is because here the god Pan was worshipped. Pan was the ruler of the wilds, the protector of shepherds and forests and pasture lands and flocks. This was a place where many gods were worshipped. Notice in the picture the booths carved out in the rocks where images of the gods were placed. This was a place where people put their trust and their lives in the hands of many gods. And here Jesus asked his friends, "Who do people say I am?" They replied, "Some say you John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." Then Jesus asks, "But what about you? Who do you say I am?" And Simon Peter answers, "You are the Messiah. You are the Son of the living God." I sense Jesus' Spirit saw, "Simon, this was revealed to you by my Father," he says. "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not overcome it." What a moment. But now, for the first time, after this moment at Caesarea Philippi, Jesus talks about his own death. Let me read. "From then on, Jesus began to tell his disciples plainly that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem and that he would suffer many terrible things at the hands of the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. He would be killed, but on the 3rd day would be raised from the dead." But Peter took him aside and began to reprimand him for saying such things. Can you see Peter's horror? Heaven forbid, Lord, he said, this will never happen to you. Jesus turned to Peter and said, get away from me, Satan. You are a dangerous trap to me. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if any of you wants to be my followers, you must give up your own way. Take up your cross and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? Is the question Jesus asks. So Jesus speaks after of his death, and Peter, the one who had just recognized him as the Messiah, the Savior of the world, struggles with this. Never, Lord. Never let that happen to you. Jesus sees the old temptation coming from his friend, the temptation to avoid the cross, to avoid his death. And he says, get behind me, Satan. And then Jesus invites his disciples to pick up their cross and follow him. Remember, the cross was a very powerful symbol of death in those days, not something you hang around your neck. He invites them to give up their lives, think on their mortality so that they could save their lives. And then he asks two questions. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? And how do you answer these questions? Many may be saying, what is my soul and how do I lose it? In his book, Soul Keeper, Caring for the Most Important Part of You, John Ortberg tells the story of a town high in the Alps that straddled the banks of a beautiful stream. The stream was fed by springs that were old as the earth and deep as the sea. The water was clear like crystal. Children laughed and played beside it. Swans and geese swam on it. You could see the rocks and the sand and the rainbow trout that swarmed at the bottom of the stream. High in the hills, far away, far beyond anyone's sight, lived an old man who served as the keeper of the springs. He had been hired so long ago that now no one could remember a time when he wasn't there. He would travel from one spring to another in the hills, removing branches or fallen leaves or debris that might pollute the water. But his work was unseen. One year the town council decided, clearly not one of our town councils, that they had better things to do with their money. No one supervised the old man anyway. What was he doing? They had roads to repair, taxes to collect, services to offer, and giving money to an unseen stream cleaner had become a luxury they could no longer afford. So the old man left his post. High in the mountains the springs went untended. Twigs and branches and worse muddied the liquid flow. Mud and silt compacted the creek bed. Farm waste turned part of the stream into stagnant bogs. For a time, no one in the village even noticed. But after a while, the water was not the same. It began to look a little brackish. The swans flew away to live elsewhere. The water no longer had a crisp scent that drew children to play by it. Some people in the town began to grow a little ill. All noticed the loss of the sparkling beauty that used to flow between the banks of the streams that fed the town. The life of the village depended on the stream, and the life of the stream depended on the keeper. The city council reconvened, the money was found, the old man was rehired, and yet another time, in a little while, the springs were cleaned, the stream was pure. Children played again on its banks. Illness was replaced by health. The swans came back home, and the village came back to life. The life of a village depended on the health of the stream. Now the stream is your soul, and you are the keeper. Our soul is like a stream, Dallas Woodard writes, a stream of water which gives strength, direction, and harmony to every area of our life. When that stream is as it should be, we are constantly refreshed and exuberant in all we do, because our soul itself is then profusely rooted in the vastness, the wonder, the vastness of God and His kingdom, including nature and all else within us is enlivened and directed by that stream. Therefore, we are in harmony with God. Reality and the rest of human nature and nature at large. We're in harmony with all of that. You see, your soul is the deepest part of you, and it is at the same time all of you. Your soul is what integrates your will, your intentions, and your mind, your thoughts and feelings, your values and conscience. Integrates your body, your face, your body language, your actions, what you do with your body. And it brings all of this into a single life. A soul is healthy, well ordered, when there is harmony between these three things: your will, your intention, your body, and your thoughts. God's intent for all of creation is that we are connected. So when you're connected with God and other people in life, you have a healthy soul. An unhealthy soul is one that experiences disintegration, and sin, which separates and divides, always causes the disintegration of the soul. So the most important thing about you is not the things you achieve, gaining the whole world, as Jesus said, but it's the person you become, a well-integrated, God-connected, people-loving, healthy soul. All of you. Now, our problem is that the world doesn't teach us to pay attention to what matters. We circulate CVs that tell of our accomplishments, not who we've become. The adverts we watch, the conversations we hold, the criteria by which we are judged, and the entertainment we consume all inflame our desire to change our situation and gain the whole world, while God waits to redeem our souls. How does the world keep us from attending to our souls? I've asked. The river is our soul, and we are the keeper. So Jesus told a story about this. It's of such importance that the story is the first recorded in the Gospel of Mark. And one parable Jesus fully interprets for his disciples. You can read it in Mark chapter 4. But it's the story about seeds, a sower and some soil. The seed is good seed. It will grow given half a chance. The seed is a picture of God's desire and his action to redeem our souls. The sower is a good sower. The sower is generous. He scatters the seed everywhere. These are the constants. The soil, however, is variable, and we may replace the word soil for soul. So some seeds fall on the path. It's rock hard. The farmers and the animals walk the path, and it's hard and dry, and the seeds don't have a chance. Souls get that way. It's the hardened soul. Often our souls get hard when we've been hurt or disappointed. It's like we form a protective shell. We grow bitter, we grow twisted, we become cynical and suspicious. We become hard towards God and hard towards one another. The world diverts my soul's attention when it encourages me to think of myself as a victim rather than a human. I'm so wrapped up in the hurt I've received that I do not notice the hurt that I inflict on others. Two sisters haven't spoken to each other for 15 years. They had a falling out over a small sum in their parents' will. There are only 2 churches in the town they live in, so they go to different ones. And in those 2 churches, different churches, the 2 sisters pray the prayer, "Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who have sinned against us." Their victimhood had become a status, and their souls were unexamined. Hold on to your life, and you will lose it, Jesus says. And sometimes the smallest act of self-sacrifice can break up the hard soil. And underneath the hard soil is often fear. The fear of being rejected, the fear of looking foolish, the fear of being hurt, the fear of broken pride, the fear of losing your life. So souls can be saved when the soil gets soft, and it takes a tiny bit of softness in the soil to give the seed a chance. The seed is strong. A seed can break up a tar road if it can find a little room to breathe. The hardened soul is more vulnerable to being saved than it knows. Some seed fell on rocky soil, a thin layer of topsoil with solid rock underneath. The seed had life until the sun came out. This is the shallow soul. The soul is too shallow for roots. For much of our lives, we live in the shallows. And then something happens, a crisis, a birth, a death, and we get a glimpse of tremendous depth. My soul becomes shallow when my interests and thoughts go no further than myself. A deep soul has the capacity to understand and empathize deeply with other people, not just himself or herself. A deep soul notices and questions and doesn't just go through the motions. A deep soul lives in conscious awareness of eternity and not just today. A soul especially has depth when it's connected to God. God's power, God's love, and God's presence is beyond measure. There is no greater depth than the love of God. In fact, God says, I will make my dwelling among you, and my soul will not reject you. God referring to the deepest part of Him. The deepest part of God calls to the deepest part of us. We lose our souls when we become blind to the depth of God, of God's love for us, and the depth and the glory of who we are made to be. A young man played excellent rugby. He hurt his knee at university, he dropped out, he got married, and he had a child. He never chose to defy God, he just drifted. It was easier to drink a beer than work on his marriage, so he got divorced. It was easier to complain than to work with all his soul and strength, so he lost his job. It was easier to avoid people who would challenge him to attend to his soul, so he hung out with people who would honor his desire for comfort above all. There's a shallowness to his life. He lives with his son now. He's been estranged for years, but he lives there only because he has nowhere else to go. He watches vast amounts of porn in his bedroom to pass the time. He's lost his health, does not take care of his body. He's waiting to die, and when he does, no one will mourn. But outside his door, if only he knew, his son waits for him to say one word of sorrow or regret or love. You see, it takes a little, such a tiny bit of depth in the soil to give the seed a chance. The shallow soil is close to being saved than it knows. Some seed fell amongst the thorns, which grows up and chokes the plant. This is the cluttered soul. Jesus said that this is the condition where the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth and the desire for other things come and choke the plant. What good is it, says Jesus to his friends, that you gain the whole world, but you lose your soul? You know, if the devil can't make you sin, he will make you busy, someone has once said. And either way, your soul will shrivel. Sin or busyness. The busy soul gets attached to the wrong things. It's called desire. The desire for money, or just the desire for other things, or the desire for more things. We so easily make the mistake and clutter our lives. And we mistake our clutter for our lives. If we cease to be busy, do we matter? A person preoccupied with externals, success, reputation, ceaseless activity, other things may be dead internally and not even realize it. It takes a little uncluttered space to give the seed space to grow. The cluttered soul is closer to being saved than it knows. Friends, as we go into a time of worship and as we sing of the love and the power of God, as we remember that we die, Momento Mori, focus on the things that matters most. Your soul is the river and you are the keeper. Your soul brings life to everything and every aspect of your being. So remember, your soul is the river and you are the keeper. What hurt needs to die to soften the soil? There is such depth to you. Invite God and others a little deeper into your heart and life. And how can you unclutter your life so that your soul can flourish?